What's up, y'all? Nefertiti, the Corny Rainbow here, and today I have a sew along for you guys with the new McCall's 8551 pattern. I'm going to be doing view B with the long sleeves on view A, and this is a stretch knit only pattern. So go ahead and pull out your knit fabrics and let's get started. For today's sew along, I'm going to be using a stretch knit velvet. Let's get into the sew along. Go ahead and make sure that you fuse your pattern piece number 1 and 2 with interfacing. I did use a stretch knit interfacing for this, and we're going to be pinning these right sides together and stitching along the side seam. All right, go ahead and stitch at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So you should have two interface pattern pieces of your front yoke and two interface pattern pieces of your back yoke. So grab one set and we're going to be pinning at the notch. Then you're going to grab an uninterfaced front and back yoke and pin them together as well. With right sides together, we're stitching at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Go ahead and trim down your seam allowance here. And now we're going to put right sides together of a front and back yoke, one interface side and one uninterface side. And we're going to be stitching on that outer edge here. After we stitch our outer edge, then we're going to be understitching the facing, and then we're going to baste the raw edges together. So go ahead and stitch at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. For view A and B, you're going to go ahead and pin your front and back yokes to your front and your back bodice. So matching that single notch, we're going to be pinning to the front, and the double notch is for your back. Go ahead and baste at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, after you've basted your yokes down, we're going to go ahead and put our bodice to the side, and we're going to work on our lining. For my lining, I'm using a power mesh, and with right sides together, we're going to pin the front and back bodice the same way that we did our main fabric. All right, go ahead and stitch the side seams down at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and I'm going to be serging the raw edges. All right, I've serged the raw edges, and we're going to go ahead and attach our lining to our bodice. So with right sides together, we're going to attach our bodice and our lining, and you should have double notches on the back and single notches on the front. We're only going to be stitching the upper front and the upper back, and then we're going to understitch our lining. Go ahead and head over to the machine, and we're going to be stitching at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. Once you understitch, go ahead and trim down. It's a preference. You can trim it down before you understitch. I like to do it after. Go ahead and trim down your seam allowance if you haven't done so already. After you've turned your lining to the inside, you're going to go ahead and turn your yoke sections up and give everything a press and baste down your armholes. All right, I've gone ahead and I have basted down my armholes, and I also basted the lower edges together. So we're going to go ahead and put this to the side and work on our sleeves. You can e-stitch your sleeves. When I'm working with stretch fabrics, I don't really like to e-stitch, so I won't be e-stitching the sleeves together, but if you like to, you can e-stitch in between the outer dots that you made on your pattern piece. So let's go ahead and match right sides together at our single notch. Then we're going to hem the lower edge. I'm going to be using a cover stitch for my hems. All right, so I've gone ahead and attached one of my sleeves. So first we're going to match right sides together at our notches, and then our side seams, match those up. All right, go ahead and sew down your sleeve at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and if you like, you can go ahead and finish it off with your serger. All right, so the sleeves are all done, and I've gone ahead and serged the seam allowance down. We're going to put this to the side. All right, so you should have cut out 2 of your skirt front and back, which is pattern piece number 8 on the fold. And then you should have cut out 4 of your side front and side back. And also transferred your markings and your notches. So right now we're just going to grab 2 of our pattern piece number 9 side front and side back. And then we're going to grab 1 of our skirt front and back. With right sides together, we're going to pin 1 of our skirt front and back, meeting the notches here. All right, so I've gone ahead and pinned 1 of my skirt front and back, pattern piece number 8, to 2 of my skirt side front and back pieces. You should have a marking on the side of your skirt where you're going to be hemming for your split. If you're doing view B or view C, I am doing view B. So we are going to need to do a narrow hem for our split there. Go ahead and head over to the machine and stitch these side seams down at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. And then you're going to go ahead and stop at your marking here and hem your split. All right, I'm coming up on my marking here, so I'm going to back stitch right at that dot. We're going to go ahead and do our narrow hem. Fold about 3/8 of an inch in and then fold again. And then I'm just going to be stitching right on that edge. I like to use my presser foot as a guide, so I'm stitching right on that fold, but the other fold is just along the edge of my presser foot. We have closed everything up. Now let's go ahead and attach the rest of our skirt pieces. All right, so go ahead and pin another side front to your skirt. You should have double notches here. Match those notches up. Then grab pattern piece number 8, which was our skirt front and back. And this time we're not going to be worrying about that split because that was on the front of the skirt. So you're basically just pinning the same pieces to each other for the back. Stitch all of these seams together at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, closing your skirt, and then we're going to attach it to our bodice. All right, once you have stitched your skirt together, we're going to go ahead and pin it to our bodice. So grab your bodice. Make sure that you're working off of the front of the bodice here. We have our split here in the front. So you should have notches on the bottom of your bodice. And then you also have notches on the top of your skirt in the front and in the back. So match up those notches. So first we're going to match right sides together on the front, and then we're going to work our way around to the back. You might need to stretch just a little bit for everything to fit. Once you've pinned the skirt to the bodice, matching your front and back notches and also your side seams, we're going to go ahead and stitch this down at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and then we're going to stitch it again at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. You can also serge to finish this off if you like. So go ahead and head over to the machine and then meet me back here. All right, so once you've gone ahead and stitched together your bodice to your skirt, give everything a good press, and you're going to make sure that you're pressing that bodice seam and all your seams downward. And then we're going to go ahead and hem the bottom of our dress. Then we're all done.